Hello everyone, welcome to Marlin Chess Kids. Today I'll show you the gameplay by Aleksandar and Luka, and this beautiful game complete in 48 moves. And let's see how the game play. The game starts with the pawn to d4, d6, e4, knight f6, and knight f3. Then e5 was played, and here you have the Philidor Defence. And the game continues with the knight to f3, knight b to d7, and the white developed the bishop to c4, and also the black developed the bishop to e7, and this allowed both to go for a short castling. And this is the first 5 moves, and in this position the white is slightly better in the game. And the game continue with the white go for a short castling, and the black also go for a short castling. After this, the rook develop and put to e1, trying to attack the e file. After this, c6 was played, and then the white play a4. After this, h6 was played, and the white just played h3. Then the black play rook to e8, and after this move b3 was played. Then the pawn e takes d4 from the black, and this is the first time move, and the white h and h in this position. After this, the knight just capture, knight takes d4, and after this the bishop just move to f8, and this will allow the rook to attack the pawn and also bring up another knight to attack. You have the 3 pieces to attack the pawn. Then bishop a3 was played, trying to prevent the knight and capture it. If the knight move to c5, then the bishop can just capture it. So after this move, knight c5 was played, trying to attack the pawn, and at this move the white can just use the bishop to capture, and this is playable, and instead the white just play queen to f3, bring the pieces to attack. So after this move, the knight goes to e6 and trying to attack the knight, and after this move the knight just capture and the bishop just capture, then bishop capture, and now the rook capture. So this is a series of exchange in this move, and the position is still equal, and this is the first 15 move. Then the game continue with the rook to e3, trying to have another rook to double up and attack at the e file. After this move, the queen to a5, bring out the queen and able to protect the square at e5. Then the rook to d1 was played, and now the white trying to attack the pawn at d6. After this, the rook a to e8, because the pawn is still protected by the bishop and the pawn. So the black trying to double up the rook, and you can attack the pawn at e4. After this move, bishop to b2, then the queen to c5, and you have the idea to attack the knight, and if the knight move away, the queen also can attack the pawn at c2. So after this move, the rook d to d3, and here pawn a6 was played. After this, the queen to e2, then the pawn b5 was played, trying to attack from the queen side pawn. And this is the first 20 move, and now the game have changed and the black is slightly better in this position, and this is because the black trying to push much of the pawn to the attack in the middle of the game. So after this move, the pawn just capture, a takes b5, and the pawn captured again, a takes b5. After this, the king h2 was played, and now the queen to a7, and here later on you can just continue to push the pawn forward and attack the white. So after this move, the pawn b4 was played, and now the queen goes to e7, and now you have 3 pieces attacking the pawn at e4 and together with the knight as well. Then king to h1 was played, and after this the knight goes to d7, trying to change the attacking idea by playing a knight to b6 and goes to c4 and attack the rook and win the bishop. And once the rook move away, then you have the idea to attack the pawn at e4. So after this move, here come a very nice move from the white by playing a knight to d5, and this is a very nice sacrifice. After this move, the pawn just capture, c takes the knight, and here it becomes the black is slightly better, and with this the pawn just capture back the d5 pawn. And after this move, now you have a series of action again with the rook capture the rook, rook takes e3, then rook capture again, rook takes e3, and here you only can play a knight to e5 to move away. And if you move away the queen, you can see is a red color is a bad move. For example, if you move the queen to d8, then the white is clearly winning by capturing the rook with the rook. Rook takes e8, and again the queen cannot capture the rook because it is protected by the queen. So therefore, at this position, the only way to play would be block with the knight. And after this block, now you have the f4 to attack the knight, and the knight again cannot move. And if you move, the white will be winning the piece. So after this move, the queen need to move away. So the queen move to b7, and the idea would be trying to attack the pawn at d5. So here the pawn just capture the knight, and now the black must prevent the pawn to move forward and attack the pawn at f7. So after this move, the queen just capture the pawn, and here the white play rook to a3. Another suggestion that the white can play will be playing a bishop to c3. And here, after the pawn capture, then you can use the rook to take. And if the rook takes, then you can just use the queen to take, or the bishop. And if you use the bishop to take this, after this f6 was played, then the bishop can just move away, and you can see it's going to be the end game. So after rook a3 was played, now the black use the pawn to take, d takes e5. Another solution, if you play something like rook to b8, then this pawn, if you capture, and the bishop you just capture it back, and you'll be very strong for the black. So at this move, after the pawn takes the e5 pawn, then the white play rook to a5, trying to attack the pawn. And here, if the black play rook to b8 to defend the pawn, and it is more deadly and threatened to win with the pawn to e4 from the black. So if you capture the pawn, then this will be another mistake, and the black will win the pin by playing a rook to e8 and pinning the bishop. And the bishop cannot move because once it's moved, you're going to capture the queen. So if you use the rook to capture, then the rook will capture the bishop first. And if the rook captures the queen, then the rook will capture the queen. And after the exchange, you will notice that the black will be winning a bishop in the exchange. So therefore, after quick rook to a5, then the queen just move to c4, trying to go for the queen exchange. And after this, the white just capture and the pawn capture it back. Then the bishop continue to capture the pawn. Bishop takes e5. So after this move, then the bishop capture back the pawn at b4. And at the move 33, you have the end game of king, rook, bishop with king, rook, bishop. So after this move, rook b5 was played, trying to attack the bishop, and the bishop moved to bishop d2. Then the rook continued to play rook to d5, attacking the bishop. So after this move, then c3 was played, and after this, the white played rook to c5. And here, the black played f6, trying to attack the bishop. And now the bishop just capture the move. And this f6 pawn is a very nice move. So after the capture, then the black will attack with the rook to e1 and check the king. And this forces the king to move to h2. Then the bishop will continue to check at f4. And now the king cannot come out and cannot go down, and the king cannot be moved, and the only way is to block with the pawn. And after block with the pawn, the rook to e2, and here continue to check. Then after check, the bishop can capture the pawn. And with this, the rook at the rank 2 is very powerful and control the king from going up. So after this move, king to h1, then the bishop will just capture the pawn. And you can see at this position, the rook is controlling the rank 2. And with this control, this king has a very limited place to play, and the king cannot go up. So after this move, bishop d4 was played, trying to use the rook to protect the pawn. And now at the move 41, you can see that when the pawn is very hard to push forward, now it's a time to move the king. So at this move is the time to move the chess onwards only, and with on attack by using the king. So at this move, the black start to use the king to move forwards. So the first move is moving the king to f7. After this, c4 was played, then the king to c6. And after this, the rook trying to play rook to c8, and with the idea to play rook to e8 and check the king and win the rook. So then the king continued to move forward to f5, and after this move, the bishop goes to G1, trying to have the idea to exchange the bishop. And at this move, the bishop goes to Gf2, go for the exchange, and you bring up the king forwards. After this move, the white do not want to go for the exchange, but if you want to go for exchange, you can just capture it, then the rook will just capture, and after the king attack the rook, then the rook will go to C2, control the pawn, and this rook cannot move. So if you move the pawn forwards, then the black will continue to move the pawn forward and with attack. And after C6, then you can just play a H5, then C7, then you can just play a H4, and after king to F1, you can just move the king to F4, then the rook move away, you just capture the pawn, and after this position, you can see that the black will have the 2 extra pawn and will be completely winning in the game. So therefore, the white do not want to go for exchange, and the white choose to play bishop to H2. After this, the rook goes to C2, trying to attack the pawn, and now the bishop to F2 D6. Then the king continued to move forward to E4, and C5 was played. And after this move, you can see that out of sudden the black is completely winning, and you'll be able to mate in 16 move. So after this move, king to F3 is a complete winning for the black. And after this move, the white play a H4, and as you can see from this move, this is a critical path for the black to play from castling and move the king forwards and onwards to attack and with an attack. And after this move, the black is completely winning and able to mate in 4. I give a couple of seconds to figure out how the black continue to play and mate in 4. Well, congratulations for those who found the answer, and for those who like to enjoy the show, here are the moves. In the actual game, after this move, bishop to G3 was played, and this you have the back rank checkmate with the rook. As the bishop is control the file, the king is control the 3 square. So after this move, if you capture the bishop, bishop takes G3, then the king will capture again. And now again, nothing much the white can do, or the white can check. So if you move the rook to D8, then the rook will just go to C1, and you have the back rank checkmate. And if you block with the rook will just capture, and it will be a back rank checkmate. So back to this position. If you move something like bishop to F4, then the bishop will just capture. And now again, if you move the rook to E8, again the rook will C1 will be the back rank checkmate, as the king control the square as well as the bishop, and this is a back rank checkmate. So if you block with the rook at E1, you have the rook capture the rook, and it will be a checkmate. And back to the position again, and if you move the bishop trying to attack the pawn such as F8, then you have a very simple move, rook to C1 checkmate. So after this bishop to g3, the white resign the game. And back to the position at the move 35. At this move, the only one of the better move to save the white the game is to move the king forward as well. So the only way you can play would be a king to g1. King to g1 you can be played, and it will be necessary for the white instead of moving the rook to attack the bishop. So I will show you the examples such as the king move to g1. Then if you use the pawn to attack, the bishop can just continue to play bishop d6. After the rook check, then you can move the king forwards to f2. And after the rook go to attack the pawn, then the rook can continue to protect the pawn. And if the bishop attack the rook, then the rook will go to a2 and keep on protect the pawn. And now if the black move the checks onward, such as moving the king forwards, such as king to f7, then you can just play bishop to f4, attacking the rook. And here, if the rook go for the exchange, then you rook capture, bishop capture, and now you have king bishop endgame. And after this move, now you can just move the king again forward to f3. You can see that the white will be more faster in moving forward the king, and also can bring the pawn forward. So if you go for a queen exchange, such as queen the bishop to e5 for the bishop exchange, the bishop can just move away to disallow the exchange. And after pawn forwards f4 f5, you can just move the pawn to g4. Then if you move the king forwards to f6, and now you can just use a bishop, continue to play around bishop to b4, and the game continue to play even though the black has advantage of pawn, but the black cannot win the game. So if the game king goes to e6, then bishop can just continue to play bishop d2, and after pawn capture, pawn takes g4, and the king can capture and move forward again. And if the king to f6, then bishop can goes to e3, and if the king goes to g6, then the bishop can goes to c5. And you can notice that the bishop will just keep on moving, and this bishop can control the pawn at c4. If you just keep controlling the square, and wow, this king will just playing the white square and just control at another angle. And with these two control, you can notice that the black will have no chance to attack and break through and promote the pawn to become a queen. So h5 was played, then king to f3, and now the king move forward to f5, then h4 can be played just to block the king to move further forward. And after bishop to f6, then the bishop can goes to f2, then g6 can be played, then the bishop can continue to e1, then bishop to d8, and the bishop can continue to f2, then bishop to c7, then again the bishop will keep on playing. And after this bishop to e5 to go for the exchange, the queen can just do not want to go for exchange and just move the bishop to e3, and the game continue with this. You can see that it's very hard for the black to go for the attack, and after a series of exchange or continue move, this game can be end with a draw at this position. And with this, thank you.